What up, y'all? I am back for another video. Today we are reviewing Saw X. It's just like I mentioned the other day, I'm not doing the other ones. I might do the spin-offs, but that's probably it. I'm not doing like the other Saw movies because from what I read ahead and all that, they just sound boring and repetitive. So I figured just not to do it. So we're doing Saw X. I remember when this came out, and I wanted to see because it was like, okay, this was a case of strong word of mouth that got me to see it because everyone was saying it was back to basics, and that's what this was. This was very much back to basics. They kept the plot simple. The only thing, and I didn't like this when I was hearing it before, that it's set between Saw 1 and 2, which was stupid. It didn't need to be. It should, because it plays out like a new movie, and because it really does. Even rewatching it, I'm still even on that opinion now. It really does just feel like the first one it just feels like a new film, and it should have just been a new film instead of making it a set between 1 and 2, because it doesn't fit when you think about it. But basically, John, we kind of, I guess it does give his backstory a little bit of, like, him getting, his treatment, and Henry is a friend of his who tells him about it, and he goes to Mexico to get this so-called treatment, and then it turns out to scam. So he kidnaps everybody who was part of it, and they have to basically survive. And I will say, this one's pretty gory. I mean, you have the scene with the eyes, which they did show in the trailers, but they don't go into full detail. Like, they don't hold back on the gore on this one, but they do bring back, like, the only thing I wish this one did, though, kind of like the first one, I would have liked a more mystery crime aspect, like maybe a detective character. If you got a really good actor to play the detective, I think it could work. But I will say this. I do like that they didn't really use the puppet much this movie. They do use it in a scene a little bit later in the film, but largely it is very much just John. Like the scene where he kidnaps the taxi driver and he finds the bombs on his arms. Pretty intense scene because you got John just staring at him like on the other side of the window. Granted, you still have the tape recorder, so he's talking, but he's not actually talking. It's such a well done scene, and Tobin Bell is so fucking great in this movie. The fact that he nails it, like he just comes back and nails it still, is great. The only, I guess, kind of criticism is you don't feel bad for the victims at all. And I guess that you're not necessarily supposed to, because the whole point is they did something that put them in this position. Not saying, obviously, what Jigsaw did is right. Obviously, he's fucked up, but, And Amanda was pretty good. Only negative, I guess, I kind of have the endings. The ending where they lock the doctor in, I don't remember her name, I'll be honest, was pretty good. Because turns out that her and her boyfriend have been scamming people, and in that they were like in and on it together, and that was the reveal. But it turns out that Jigsaw knew they were coming, so because they were looking for the money, so they going through John's office, but it turns out it was a trap, and basically they have to turn on each other to survive because the room is being filled with it's some kind of like poison gas. I don't remember what exactly it is, but it's some kind of poison gas. And yeah, he ends up killing. They end up dying towards the end, but it's a pretty decent film. Like it keeps it simple, and I think that's what Saw needed. If you're gonna make another one, just keep it fucking simple. And I think that's why this one works for me, because it just kept it simple. They didn't go over the top with it. They didn't go overly convoluted like I hear a lot of the later ones get. So for me, like I said, the only real negative I really have is that it should have just been a new entry. They didn't need to make it like set between 1 and 2, because it just doesn't work. If you really think about it, it plays out like a new film. It just does. Oh, another positive I do have. I love that they go more into Amanda and John's relationship. Like 1 and 2 were fine, but I do feel like 2, they could have a little bit got or I guess 3 even. Like I don't feel like they got enough into Amanda and John's relationship, and I feel like this one really does because John's basically trying to prepare her, like, hey, I'm gonna die. So and Amanda doesn't. She's like even says she's not ready to go by her. Like in a way, yeah, they're villains, right? But they do a good job of making them sympathetic, but they don't do it in a way where it's like the movie outright tells you what they're doing is wrong. Still, it just you do feel bad though, and it's done well, and I think it's because of their performances, and I really do like that they do explore that a little bit more. But overall, it's a good film, and it's just the biggest problem. Like, it brings it back to basics. And that's probably what this video is going to just be titled, Back to Basics, because that's what this was. They didn't overly, I'm going to say this again, they didn't overly convolute the plot like a lot of the later ones get. So I think that's what's good. I'm interested to see what they do with Saw 11. If they do another one, I do think this one needs to be it. This one should be it. I don't really see the point of doing anymore after this one. But if you're going to do it, if they can keep the same tone like this movie and keep it simple, then maybe I'm for it. So, because I actually think that's what made this one. And Tobin Bell is just so good. He's just so good in these movies. So, but anyway, out of 10, I'd probably give this maybe an 8. 8 out of 10. I pretty much enjoyed it. So, tomorrow I will be doing Velocipaster. And man, that movie, guys, the name is why I watched the movie. Just the name alone. When I saw it, like on someone mentioned it, I'm like, it's really called that. And man, it's bad, but it's funny bad. So we'll be reviewing that tomorrow. I'll figure out what we'll do for next week's Bad Movie Wednesdays. I'll probably, like I said, I'll mention Plan 9. And I'll talk about that for a little bit. And then maybe we'll review Ed Wood at some point. I'll actually review that one. Because actually, that's a really good movie. Anyway. So, the movie opens up. I do like we kind of see John like a little bit of look at his like normal life. Dealing with his cancer. His friend Henry says this treatment, by these Norwegian doctors really helped him, but it's out of the country. So he goes to Mexico, and this is where we meet Gabriella. She seems like a normal woman. She turns out to be one of the people. But she meets I'll just call her blonde doctor woman, because I do not remember her name, I'll be honest. She, basically promises John that they'll take care of him, and that the surgery, they do it. But it turns out, as John goes back to the site, that he sees a video, and it turns out that the surgery was all a scam. It was all like just for show, just to take his money. And then we jump, and basically each Gabriella, Mateo, the doctor herself, Gabriella, all get taken by Amanda, who we get the reveal when they take. I think Valentina is the other one. So the scenario, I think, with Valentina is she was about to get raped. I'll just say that. The guy gets knocked out, and then she gets taken, and then the doctor gets taken, Mateo gets taken, and then, we get the reveal when they take the doctor, and that's when we get the point of view. I do like the cinematography in this one. I do. I really think they did a good job with that. We see that Amanda's back, and before that, sorry, I skipped ahead. Tobin Bell is so good because this is probably my favorite scene when he takes the taxi driver, and that's when the taxi driver has like his bomb strapped to his wrists, and he has to use like these blades because his hands are taped, and he has to use basically he has a cut into his flesh. It's so fun, yeah. The gore, but they don't overly do the gore like because I've seen a compilation of the later kills from the later movies, and they go so like I'm all for like blood and gore and carnage candy, but they go over the top in those later ones to the point where it's just clearly about that, and they don't even care about how it's done. And at least I think that's why the traps are so convolutedly built too in the later ones, whereas this one is just they kept it simple. And it was fun, like when that dude had to cut his arms. So he ends up living, basically. But yeah, that scene, it was just so. That's probably my favorite scene with, Jigsaw because it was just him behind the mirror, the guy screaming, and Tobin, Jigsaw or John isn't saying anything. I actually think it's creepier when it's actually just John staring at you, and it's not like the puppet or anything like that. It's just him. And then the tape recorder drops. So he's talking, but he's not actually talking. He's just watching. And it's such well done. And I think that's why I'm happy this film's getting a lot of praise. And I maybe hope the SOG people who made some of these other ones learned, keep it simple. And I think, but this should have never really been a franchise, 3 movies max. But I'm okay with accepting this as a 4th movie. And I'm okay with this last one, but that's it. There should not be any more after that. Don't try to make this a new trilogy. I think at that point you're going to fall into the same trap, I fear, if you continue it. So I think maybe 2 movies max, be done after that. Because there's not like there's lore. So to the point where certain franchises I'm okay with continuing because there's lore you could add. I'm okay with more Halloween movies done right because Michael Myers, there's so much lore you can build around, and also the amount of timelines. Same with like Freddy, same with Jason. I just feel like with Saw, there's none. So I feel like do 2 more movies, we got Saw X, and then do 1 more and be done. And that's it. Because so you can kind of make up a little bit for those later Saw entries, but be done after that. Because you're going to fall, I'm saying it, you're going to fall into the same fucking trap if you keep going after that. If you try to make like a new trilogy or even more after that, it's like be done. But anyway, but Tobin Bell is just so good in this movie. And I love the little scenes where everyone's all tied up, and then Valentina is the first one. Her trap is a Geely saw. So basically she has to cut her leg off and try to cut into the bone marrow, and she has to make a certain amount before to stop the saw from going off because it will slice her head clean off. So pretty well done scene. Everyone's just watching. They're all freaking out, and they just see John and then Amanda. And John goes into why he's doing this. They dipped into the doctor's records, and basically she's been fucking over people for years. You get all this stuff. So it's just done very well, and everyone's reaction was well done. Like Mateo is probably my favorite actor in the movie because he played like a guy who, he pulled off being freaked the fuck out. Like he was really he was pulling it the fuck off, man. Like the way he was screaming, it didn't just feel like I was watching a guy in a movie act like that. It really was as if he was actually seeing this in real time. Especially the scene when we see Valentina actually have to saw her leg off, and it's like, bro. And his reaction is so believable because it's like, I'd probably act like that. You're gonna freak the fuck out when you're seeing, and the fact that you could pull it off and make it believable, not just feel like you have to act like that because you're being told to act like that. So she ends up almost doing it, but she ends up dying. She ends up getting killed. And then the next one up is, I think it's Mateo after that. Yeah, Mateo, because his death is pretty brutal. Because he has to, I'll admit it, his is a little convoluted, but basically he has to, cut a part of his scalp and but he ends up, I think he ended up dying too. And this like, I don't, it's like this mask. There's like, I'm assuming there's like blades or some kind of hot because there's like steam coming out. So he ends up getting killed. Um, then I'll just say we get. I'll just spoil it. The reveal is that the guy who's claiming like that this lady fucked him over. They're actually in on it together. He's like her boyfriend basically. He ends up showing up. I feel like I recognize that guy. I just can't think of his name, but I've seen him in other movies. I feel like, especially his voice. I'm like, I recognize that dude. And but yeah, just the little scenes where you just see the back and forth between Amanda and John are probably like some of my favorite scenes in the movie because it's just we don't really get a lot of that in some of the other movies. A little bit in the second one, but I don't really feel like in the third one, even though that's supposed to be the last one. I do feel like I wanted a little bit more of those kind of scenes, and I feel like they gave us a lot of that in this one. And next is Gabriella, who basically to get out of the trap, she has to break her legs with a sledgehammer. It's pretty brutal. Like the traps aren't like overly convoluted and stylized, and I think that's what the later ones clearly that's what they were going for. Like was the more over the top traps, and I kind of like that in this one they went back to just simple traps. You know, not some of this. Even like Saw 3, you know, I didn't love it. I mean, I think Saw 3 is probably the weakest of, like, if I had to say the Saw original Saw trilogy, it'd probably be the weakest of it. But I do like that even in that movie, Saw 2 and 3 did a good job of still maintaining that the traps were simple. They didn't go overly. Yeah, they went a bit bigger, which I don't have an inherent problem with going bigger. But the later ones, just seeing some of the traps designed, they were like, okay, this is just too much. You're just trying to go over the top of the how convoluted we can make this, and I think that's what they did. So I'm happy they went back to this. That's what this really was. It was back to fucking basics, and I think that's what, especially horror. Horror should just always be basics. You know, not every. I'm not saying you can't have a complex story with horror sometimes, but I think largely horror should just be simple. Simplicity works. There's a reason the original Halloween is a classic. There's a reason Scream is a classic. All these, you know, Friday the 13th, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, all Jaws, I'll even throw Jaws in there, Alien. All of these have one thing in common: simplicity. And I think that's what made the first Saw work, was that simplicity. And that's what this was. They just went back to basics. Even with the reveal, it didn't seem like they were rushing to have like a big reveal. Yeah, the reveal is they were working together because the guy ends up breaking Gabriella's neck, holds John and Amanda hostage, puts the traps on them, waterboards John and the kid, who's like, he's like Gabriella's son, who he kind of like throughout the film has a little connection with. That's maybe the other negative. I didn't need the kid. It was weird because then it's like this kid's just right. Especially that's why adding it to making it set between 1 and 2 doesn't make it. But even by itself, and let's say this was a new Saw entry, I didn't need that kid character. I could have done without the kid character. That's the only aspect about the film. I almost just kind of tune it out, but it doesn't ruin the movie or anything. But it does. It is. I will say it is a criticism, though. I still count it as a criticism a little bit. I don't think that kid was needed. You could have had the reveal and just have Amanda and John walk off, and that just as easily could have worked. So, but anyway, I still think the part where they go and look for the money, because we get the reveal that because they took our money, because she was gonna run off with money and they took it, and they were loading it off, but they get locked in because the trap gets triggered. And it turns out that John knew the whole time, so he set up basically the dude to come there. And the reveal is that basically they have to turn on each other, and that they fucked over people so much that now it's their turn to fuck each other, or one of them has to fuck each other over. So the room gets like poison, some kind of poison gas, basically starts filling the room, and they have to try to get out. There's only one entrance, and basically you have to turn on each other. They end up getting in a fight, which the fight was a little cartoony, but whatever. She ends up stabbing him, but she's still trapped in John, and basically Amanda and her walk off. And then later, Henry's set in a trap, and then we see John and I think Mark Patton watching. I think is what the Wikipedia said. So overall, awesome movie, and I think that is why I like Saw. And I think this was what kind of should have been what some of the, if you're gonna continue Saw, you should have did movies like this. Because, like I said, I look at this as a brand new entry. This isn't like to me, this isn't like a fucking, continuate. To me, this is a continuation. I don't look at this as like a set between 1 and 2. It just doesn't make any sense, especially with that random kid. It just doesn't add up. Especially what ends up happening in Saw 2 anyway. And also Amanda's character, because in Saw 2, she was all psycho. That's the reveal. Like, we get the reveal, and later on, obviously by Saw 3, she ends up going full on, like, she embraces just killing to kill. So, like, I felt like that would have somewhat kicked in even at this point, and it wouldn't make any sense because she was, like, scared. It doesn't work. This should have just been a new entry. This plays out like a new entry, and that's what it is to me. To me, this is Saw 4, basically. But Tobin Bell is so good. The score is great. Saw actually has, to me, the main Saw score is actually very underrated horror theme. Like, that song slaps, even though, like, Saw isn't my franchise, but that theme fucking slaps. Especially when they actually play it right, like that first, especially in the first movie, but even the one in this, when it starts playing, it fits. Tobin Bell, I'm gonna say it again, it's just so good. Like, he comes back, and it just feels natural for him to be John, to be Jigsaw. And the fact in this, you do see Billy the Puppet. There's a scene where he rolls out, on the bike, but he doesn't actually speak through the doll, which would have been cool to see, but I'm actually happy. I love the moments when it's just John actually doing it. It's actually doing the traps as John. It's actually creepier. Like, especially that, I'm going to see it again, that scene with the taxi cab guy. Like, that, just him just staring was just creepy. Tobin Bell still got it, man. His voice is so iconic. And the fact that he still got the voice, even though it's been a little bit. So yeah, this is definitely a good movie. For me, I watched Saw 1. I probably only really watched 1 and 2. 3 is fine. It has a little issues, but I can count 3 as like the conclusion, and then this is like if they wanted to do a one-off continuation, that's what this feels like to me. So pretty good film. Amanda was great too. Good kills. I love that the traps are back to being simple. They didn't go the overly convoluted route like some of those later ones got. So, but yeah, guys, it's a pretty good movie. So I'll figure out what I'm going to do on Tuesday. Tuesdays now that I finished the Saw franchise. Because I've done pretty much a lot of the big horror. I'll admit, Saw, I'll straight up say it. I explained why I'm not doing the later ones. And I just decided to skip to this one because I figured we'll review the ones that matter. When I feel like I would just be saying the same thing if I just reviewed all those other movies, so that's why. At least with the Texas Chainsaw movies, they were bad, but even the Hellraiser movies, I felt like I had something to say. I felt like when I was just reading ahead at some of the later ones, I'll still do the prequels. I feel like I had some of those. I'm like, okay, I feel like like Spiral was not good. So I can actually talk about that. And Jigsaw was not good. So I've seen those two, and I figure I can talk about those. But I don't feel like I have anything to say about the later Saw movie, because a lot of them are just bad reveals. And I feel like I'd just be saying the same thing in every video. So I just decided not to and just skip to Saw X. So maybe, who knows, down the line somewhere, maybe if I'm in the mood, I might even go back and eventually do those movies. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll figure out what I'll do on Tuesdays for now, or if I'll just go back to doing. Okay, we'll do this on Tuesday and then this on Tuesday. Just kind of, we'll see. But anyway, tomorrow, Velocipaster. My God, and the design of the costume is so absurdly bad, but it's great. It is like it's one of those movies that it's kind of is so bad it's good. It's so the name is why I fucking watched it. It's just alone the name. Yeah, it's fucking great. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, guys, peace out here. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.